So, folks, in case you're wondering how it's going here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, um, if you're flying overhead, everything looks tranquil, everything looks pretty peaceful right now. Nothing out of the oh wait. I guess uh well, I guess things seem to be not going great here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. People are out on the ice spelling out SOS with their maybe it means so ostentatious snow that's what it could be. Maybe they're critiquing the aesthetics of winter. It's not going great here, guys. And I want to really emphasize that it's really not going great here because the AP put out a video yesterday titled "Lack of Judicial Warrant Thwarts ICE Arrest of Minnesota," and the nature of this headline seems to imply that it's newsworthy that the lack of a judicial warrant prevents ICE from making an arrest here. But I just want to remind everyone that's literally the constitutional law. Like you need a judicial warrant. It's not notable when a police officer follows the law and nothing happens. But for whatever reason here in Minnesota, it is noteworthy now and newsworthy when an ICE agent follows the law. That's where we're at now.
This person, they saw us and they ran. Okay. Twice deported, convicted of domestic abuse, and released. That's what we're here for. You know, that's what we're here for. But, they'd rather call the police on us than to help us. Go figure.
Oh man, these people want to make sure that we're not just random kidnappers that have LARPy bullshit uniforms. These people just don't believe we, the masked men with guns lurking outside their house and chasing them down. They just don't believe that we're here to help.
They're never the loud house, right? They're never the people shooting off fireworks in the middle of the night, all of those things that can make neighbors hard. They've been there for a long time, as far as I've known. And the fact that federal agents are coming into my community and taking someone away when 70% of the time, currently, they are not criminals. I don't trust them. I don't trust a single thing they said about who they are.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing here. Like, they thought they were going to get so much mileage out of saying that undocumented immigrants. Oh, no. The people here are, they're actually murderers. They've each killed 12 people. We're definitely handling only the murderers. Okay. We've come, look, you saw that 5-year-old, probably undocumented, also did 12 murders. We're just cleaning up the streets. Like, they genuinely think this kind of shit will fly.
From my interactions, I know them way better than anyone else does. Any one of those federal agents. The fact that ICE has been haunting our neighborhood since June, and they took our neighbor in the yellow house who's been here for 30 years and deported him to Laos. On June 7th, they took him and left behind his son, who's 8, and his other son, who's 13, and a 20-year-old daughter, and a 25-year-old daughter, and a 3-year-old little girl, and they took him away from them. And now that family is struggling. That's not happening again. And we watched that one happen, and we didn't know what to do then.
I've been to law school, so you tell me when you know what the hell you're talking about, then you can come tell me.
You stupid bitch, if you'd actually been to law school and gotten your degree, you wouldn't be out here as an ICE agent. Don't shut the fuck up, you lying sack of shit. Like, oh, I've been to law school. Then what the fuck went wrong in your life that you had to sign up to be a masked kidnapper? Huh? What exactly went wrong for you?
Oh, shut the hell up.
Let's go. All right, guys. Thank you, guys.
Street lawyers. They know every goddamn thing.
Yeah, I went to law school, but you guys all seem to know what you're talking about, so we're gonna jet. But I went to law school.
In Minnesota, you don't just need a judicial warrant. You also need a neighborly smile and a homemade lemon square to enter anyone's space. Don't you know?
It's true. You can't sit at their table until you've given a gift of bread. Bread and salt. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated. He's been to a law school. Oh, he went to a law school to abduct someone. That makes more sense. There we go. Nailed it. And that the name of that law school, the School of Hard Knocks. It's just awful what's happening here. I was literally talking with someone earlier today, and they were just like, they apologized to me for laughing while talking about what is going on here, and I was like, you don't have to apologize. Like, we have to laugh about what is happening to a degree, because like the alternative is just breaking down and not being able to like go about our days. You know, like there's almost like a gallows humor here about what is happening. It's all so absurd. It's all just so absurd. And like when I say like things are getting absurd, I mean like genuinely it's going off the deep end. Like, I've been hearing some folks assess what is happening with the Trump administration as, you know, they have effectively failed at their stated goal, and what they're doing now is just pressing the only button they have available to them, which is violence, which is incitement. You know, and in effect, we're kind of in like the death throes of their movement. And, you know, I can kind of see it because I gotta tell you, I don't think things are going particularly well for the spin masters of the Republican Party when Christopher Rufo, the guy who gave them critical race theory and DEI and trans youth in sports talking points, like he's the guy who like mainstreamed these talking points. He's now out there pushing anti-Scandinavian racism. That like that's his new thing that he's landed on. Just gonna read you this excerpt. What explains why endemic disorder seems to plague Minneapolis? My pet theory is that if you look at the history of Minneapolis and compare it to the histories of other American cities that have similarly become hotbeds of left-wing radicalism and anarchy, say Seattle, there are real commonalities. Both cities have a long history of powerful organized labor movements, factions of communist sympathizers, and a tradition of industrial frontier progressivism. Each city also has a high density of Scandinavians. There's something about Scandinavian transplant cultures that simultaneously brings an over-empathizing element. Bring in as many Somalis as you can. Don't ask any rude questions about what they might be up to. And also a more militant, socialistic, progressive, and activist element. Like, we have achieved a new level of white nationalism, white supremacy that we haven't seen since Benjamin Franklin was talking about how the United States shouldn't allow in any of the swarthy cultures like the Germans, the Norwegians, or the Swedes. We like those types of whites were just too swarthy and untrustworthy to allow into you know, the newly born America. And like we have now regressed so far into the deep end that Christopher Rufo is practically breaking out calipers to try and measure the skull shapes of Scandinavians in the Midwest to see why we care about our neighbors. Because that's the thing, right? That's the thing at the fundamental bedrock of all of this, is that they cannot wrap their head around the idea that people care about their neighbors. This, it's almost Tolkien-esque, you know. I've been on like this Tolkien kick recently, and this idea that Tolkien had that like what evil is the inability to pity others, the inability to like extend beyond yourself empathy and compassion, right? And like it's wild to see that play out in real time. Like that idea seems like it is validated when I look at what these people are writing and trying to like put out into the world to rationalize why people in Minnesota might care about their neighbors. Because folks like Christopher Rufo and a lot of the Republican Party writ large cannot seem to understand why someone who lives next to Somali people or in a neighborhood with Somali people or sends their kid to a school with Somali people might feel compelled to stand up for their rights. Like they can't conceive of a world where you would care about people like that. Like in my mind, like that doesn't seem like even radical compassion. It doesn't seem like a radical amount of care. It seems like a pretty normal amount of attachment and care and empathy to extend to people in your community. But this all ties back to an idea that I articulated a while ago, which is that, Republicans have a different circle of people they care about, like there's a large distinction one can make between the left and the right based on who they consider is in their, within their empathy horizon, And a lot of conservatives, they have very small empathy horizons. They only care about people in their, maybe their extended family, maybe only their immediate family, maybe only themselves, maybe only their, like, isolated town. But they carve out exceptions all the damn time, And I think folks on the left, by and large, have much broader empathy horizons, much larger groups of people that they care about and are willing to fight for and go to the mat for, And for the folks who have this limited amount of empathy to extend to others, like, it's alien to them. It's truly alien. And also, like, I know I personally allowed myself to be a little bit hopeful about, the shift up that was happening here in Minneapolis with Greg Bovino going out and Tom Homan coming in. But I gotta say, the Trump administration has only doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on trying to make an example of Minnesota and Minneapolis. We have yet to see any evidence that like ICE agents have left in any meaningful amount. There are still 3,000 agents deployed here. And also, just want to play this clip from Todd Blanche here about his position on evidence regarding Good and Preddy.
For transparency, would you commit to releasing the body cam video from federal officers that was involved in that shooting and their names at a point when the investigation can allow that? Will you make that public? And I did not hear clarity on whether Renee Good's case is also in the civil rights realm.
I'm not committing to anything with respect to that investigation that would be completely unfair to the investigation itself for me to stand here and commit to something for any reason. It depends. It depends on what happens with the investigation, and that's a decision that was made by the folks that are working the investigation as it relates.
Okay, can I ask a favor of those of you who are a little bit more Photoshop capable than I am? Can someone just Photoshop his head like 10 to 20% smaller, and like kind of shrunk down into his suit? Can I make that request? Because like the suit already, every time we see him, looks like it's getting bigger and he's shrinking down into it. Can we do like what we did with Charlie Kirk's head and just like shrink him down a little bit more in his suit a little bit? I think that'd be great. Yeah, reverse Kirk. Exactly. I think it'd be funny. We are now learning that there's body camera footage from the officers involved in executing Alex Preddy, and Todd Blanche is just like, I could never commit to releasing any of that footage ever. Why you think we have body camera footage to just give footage of what happened to the public? Oh, no, sir. It's crazy. Why is his suit so ill-fitting? It's probably because he's doing a whole Better Call Saul thing, you know? I don't know. But we have worsening conditions with ICE. It's not even just like the lack of accountability. Like, ICE is doubling and tripling down on its abuses here in Minnesota, okay? And this article was published today. ICE expands power of agents to arrest people without warrants. An internal memo changed the standard from whether people are unlikely to show up for hearings to whether they could leave the scene. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, okay, an internal memo. This is the memo that you talked about like last week, Jack. This is the memo that was secret, that they could only talk about by word of mouth, that like allowed them to violate the Fourth Amendment and like break into homes without a judicial warrant, right? No, this is a new memo. Like, ICE is just being issued these memos across the entire department, giving ICE, trying to tell ICE agents that they have these new and extraordinary powers that they do not have, right? So this new memo is effectively arguing that the new standard to make a warrantless arrest, an agent believes someone is an undocumented immigrant, the new standard for arresting them without a warrant isn't, just isn't going to be like whether they're unlikely to show up for their hearing, their court date. The new standard is, are they going to escape the scene if they are not arrested? Which is an incredibly different standard for detaining people. An incredibly broader standard for detaining people. Like, this is going to massively expand the number of people that they are going to feel like they have the ability to snatch off the streets. Yeah, it's really, really gross. The change expands the ability of lower-level ICE agents to carry out sweeps rounding up people they encounter and suspect are undocumented immigrants rather than targeted enforcement operations in which they set out, warrant in hand, to arrest a specific person. So, I want you all to understand that when it says, when the New York Times is writing, carry out sweeps rounding up people they encounter and suspect are undocumented immigrants, they don't actually have to suspect anything. All they have to do is say that they suspect something. It literally is essentially a memo that allows them to arrest and detain anybody. It is a blank check for them to arrest anybody for any reason, and all they have to do to justify it is say, well, I think that maybe that they would have tried to flee the scene. So, I just think they're an undocumented immigrant. I might be wrong, but we'll sort that out down at the station. You know? Like, if you ask, am I being detained? Then you can be detained. Yeah, if you look at them funny, and they just want to, they can just say, yeah, I think they're an undocumented immigrant. I can take them. Like, this is, some extraordinarily dangerous shit. And they're trying it out actively in Minneapolis. Yeah, I mean, like, now the comparisons to like slave catchers, the SS, the Gestapo, the KKK, like it's all accurate. You know, they can just take anybody. Now, granted, they don't have the manpower to just take everybody, but they do. They are claiming the power to take anybody that they want. And it's very scary. It's very scary. And I just want to say, at the very least, we have congressional Dems in our corner. At the very least, we've got folks out there fighting for us.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
We won't rest. We won't rest. We won't rest. Oh, wait, what's that? Oh, actually, Chuck Schumer is in fact resting, and we are not getting sufficient guards against this lawless agency that is trying to destroy any semblance of democracy we have. So, yes, there is going to be a government shutdown for about a week. At the very last minute here, the Senate passed the bill that will fund various sections of the government for the next year. And as a compromise, they signed a bill, like a continuing resolution for DHS funding that will effectively kick the can down the road by 2 weeks, right? So we're in a bit of a pickle right now, folks. Now, the argument from congressional Dems is effectively, by getting this continuing resolution signed and passed, right, that they get some immediate concessions, and then the 2 weeks that they have from now can be dedicated to negotiating with Republicans on just the DHS funding, which, you know, sounds okay if you don't think about the fact that you had way more leverage today prior to signing the rest of the funding over for all those other departments. You had more leverage right now. You are going to be going into this 2-week period with far less leverage. But that the thinking from congressional, Dems like Chuck Schumer is, we're going to get an even better deal after we negotiate for 2 weeks. But here is what we got so far. Okay. In a partial win for Democrats, Trump and GOP leaders acquiesced to their request to punt on DHS funding for 2 weeks, but it remains to be seen what policy changes they will agree to for ICE and CBP as Democrats demand reforms. Democrats plan to use the 2 weeks to negotiate changes such as ending roving patrols, tightening requirements for warrants to make arrests, imposing a code of conduct for immigration agents, and forcing them to wear identification and body cameras. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say earlier that we got some concessions in this 2-week funding bill already? I lied. There are no concessions. We got nothing. This was our big moment of leverage, and what we got for it was a 2-week extension on negotiations that we haven't gotten anything else for. So now Democrats are saying, well, we're going to give you a pie in the sky. It's a pie that's way up there, you see. And I'm going to guess we're going to get very, very little for this. They can still wear masks. They can still wear masks at the moment. So, that being said, Democrats do still retain the ability to deny any funding whatsoever go to ICE. But keep in mind, that would still mean that there's that they have like $100 billion slush fund that they can dip into, and nothing will really change their day-to-day operations, even if they have no funding for the rest of the year. So that's cool. That's some cool stuff right there. What the Dems are effectively hoping is that people will be less angry in 2 weeks, and then they'll just be able to like meekly get something that is symbolic, but doesn't functionally change what ICE does. And I gotta be honest, there might have been a time recently where I thought maybe that could work for them. Like at the very least, like the general public would fall asleep and stop thinking about this, working on it.
Dipping out now cause my phone battery is low, leaving a dono to find my place later. Bye, Jack.
Bye, Nathan. Thank you for the $5 dono. But I gotta say, I don't think people are going to forget what is happening here right now. I mean, this is where people are at right now in Chicago. All right, it's a short clip, but like people around the country are waking up and they're angry as hell. And you know, I live in Minneapolis and we're in Minnesota, and I talked to several other people today. All of them talked about being exhausted by how angry they have been. This is not going to be something that people just forget. And seeing footage come out of major cities around the country, seeing people turn out to stand in solidarity with Minnesota and Minneapolis, I don't think that people around the country are going to forget what's happening either. Like, look at this. This is Chicago. I believe that we will win. 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 I'm sorry. Like they're turning out in the middle of like a goddamn snowstorm. You know? And they're chanting about how we are going to emerge victorious. And you know what? I believe them. I believe in them and the motivation that got those people out on the street in the first place. I believe in what is motivating them to stay out there when it is cold and snowy and people are freezing their asses off. They are out there because they are mad. They are mad as hell. And that anger is still going to be here weeks from now as ICE agents continue to brutalize us, continue their reign of terror on our communities. Does the tired of being angry mean the masses are demoralized? No, it just means we are so burnt out on being angry. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop showing up for each other because fuck these guys. We're angry. But we have to understand that, like, where we're at right now, the can has been kicked back to February 13th. So right now, that is the deadline. And what I want you to understand is that while this sucks that we do not have a solution right now to what is happening in our cities and states right now, sorry, I have the hiccups. Well, it means that we don't have a solution right now. We have been given 2 weeks. We've been given 2 weeks. What that means is, folks, you guys each have a new mission. And that mission is to call your elected senators and representatives every day. Schedule some time, like 15 minutes every day, to call your elected members of Congress in order to pressure them to, like, do something about ICE. Pressure them to abolish ICE. Pressure them to abolish the DHS. Pressure them to get rid of Stephen Miller. Pressure them to get rid of Kristi Noem. Okay? Our country was founded on fuck these guys, we're angry, these are patriots. 100%. We're so angry we could dump some tea in the ocean, you know? But, like, you guys need, like, genuinely, we all need to call our elected members of Congress every day from now until February 13th. Okay? Fax them, call them every day. Because I guarantee you, how many people are watching right now? We got 125-ish in Twitch chat. We've got 320 in YouTube chat. Plus we got, like, how many? 50 in Riverboat chat. 60 people in Riverboat chat. So we all told have around almost 500 people here. If you all called your elected members of Congress every day from now till February 13th, we could, like, guys, 8 calls. 8 calls to one congressional office is considered a lot. It only takes 8 people calling into a congressional office in a day for it to be considered a lot. You guys, we can leverage so many more calls than just 8 with just the people here. Okay? So I want you guys to understand it is vitally important for you guys to call and fax your elected representatives. even if they are Republican, especially if they're Republican, especially if they're a centrist Dem. Okay? It is super important because we actually have the ability to get them to hold the line on DHS funding. We have the ability to get some real concessions, and I'm going to go one step further here. It is vitally important that we get concessions because what is happening right now is quickly spiraling out of control here in Minnesota and Minneapolis. We have to be mobilizing and organizing our abilities as individuals and people within this democratic system and pulling the levers that are available to us in order to influence people in power. Because I got to tell you guys, Chuck Schumer, he doesn't know or really give a shit what's happening in Minneapolis. He doesn't really care. All right. He just doesn't. But he does care if a bunch of people invade his solitude by calling his office, by faxing him, by showing up to talk with him in person. Like, those are things that shatter and actually make it through to these elected officials. Many of them are isolated. They don't really understand what is happening here. And even those that do understand, they need some extra reminding. Okay? So, y'all, pick up your phone. You can start right now. Pick up your phone, call your elected representatives and senators, and let them know you want ICE abolished, DHS abolished, and, Kristi Noem gone, Stephen Miller gone. And very importantly, if you can't abolish ICE, you need stronger restrictions than what is currently on the table. We need to demand better. Okay? It is vitally, vitally important. And if you want to point towards other things to bolster your argument when you make your call, leave your voicemail, talk to a staffer, what have you, you can point out that Indivisible, for example, one of the largest organizing apparatuses currently existing in this country, is talking about how this is bullshit, effectively. Every day, DHS is funded without new restrictions as an all-hands-on-deck emergency for communities across this country. This continuing resolution, which keeps ICE and CBP operating as they are, will allow 2 more weeks of this brutal agency terrorizing our communities. It must end. This moment also shows that channeling our outrage into powerful organizing works. For the last few weeks, the public has made it overwhelmingly clear that we reject this authoritarian reign of terror and demand Congress fight back. Republicans are retreating, and now the fight is squarely on DHS, where they have even less leverage. Each and every one of them must answer for stealing money from our healthcare to fund masked goons, occupying our cities, and kidnapping children. Democrats not only have a moral duty, but an obligation to press their advantage and fight like hell for policies that meet the moment. Over these next 2 weeks, Democrats must finish the job. That means drawing firm red lines and conditioning their votes on real ironclad limits. ICE and CBP out of our communities, real accountability for abuses, ending the blank check for brutality, and clear guardrails to stop raids, profiling, and the occupation of our cities. Progress looks like Democrats holding the line and enacting meaningful changes. If Dems cave and fund DHS without change, it would be an abject betrayal of our neighbors being dragged out of their homes, of the parents standing guard to shield kids going to school, and of our constitutional rights when they most needed defending. Democrats must hold the line now more than ever. It's their fight to lose, which is absolutely true. They spittin'. Indivisible spittin'. Okay? And I want to say also that something very interesting happened today, which is Bernie Sanders secured a vote to cut $75 billion in ICE funding. Now, one of the things that we might be able to do if we call and make this request is we might be able to push this idea, which I think is a very good one. So this vote is effectively, this idea of Bernie Sanders is to cut $75 billion in funding to ICE and give it to Medicaid, to effectively restore a large portion of funding that was taken from Medicaid to pay for ICE ramp up. And, Congress has the ability to undo that. And we should absolutely, where we can, be clawing back this money that was taken from Medicaid Instead of giving it to ICE as like a gigantic blank check, we should be taking that back and using it for our most vulnerable people, the people who need this money to live. Okay? This is a great idea. And I want you all to know that Bernie Sanders was able to secure a vote on this idea. Do any of you want to know how that vote went over in the Senate? Very interestingly, that measure, while it did fail, failed only by 2 votes. It failed by 2 votes. The measure failed by 49 to 51. Because this is a measure that can pass on a simple majority. So, one of the things that I think we should be asking is for the bill to fund DHS to be amended with Bernie Sanders' proposal. Okay? We should amend the DHS funding to claw back $75 billion from ICE for Medicaid. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski both voted for this. So one of the ideas that I'm going to ask you guys to hand off in your calls to your elected members of Congress, call for Bernie Sanders' measure to take $75 billion in ICE funding and give it to Medicaid. Ask them to roll that into the bill. Ask that to be one of our demands. We need 2 votes on this to make sure that JD Vance can't veto it. Now, I will point out that DHS funding needs to pass by 60 votes. However, Republicans really want to pass DHS funding for the next year, which means as something contingent for Democrats to give their votes towards this 60 vote threshold, I think they should make passing this measure by a simple majority a requirement. Okay? Reintroduce this, pass it by simple majority with 2 more Republicans defecting, and then we can talk about DHS funding. Anyway, I think it's a really great idea. I like that Bernie Sanders changed the conversation around this a little bit, okay? And I agree with you, Insolent. Dems need to stop playing patty cake once they have a majority or even a super majority. We need to stop playing patty cake. We need to actually play hardball, and we need to actually get meaningful measures and reforms. We need to set things right in this country. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of bills, and this idea that Dems can play bipartisanship if they win power again in a big way. No. I will also say, folks, that there are additional measures being introduced in the House. Greg Sargent here reporting on Eric Swalwell and Dan Goldman introducing a bill to strip ICE of qualified immunity. These are all things that we should be trying to push through, trying to get critical amounts of support for. Strip ICE of their qualified immunity. Open them up to lawsuits. Open them up to criminal prosecution. God knows they deserve it. There are a lot of things we can do to put checks on ICE and keep them accountable. We just need Dems to actually do shit to make those a reality. Because folks, I can't handle more stories like this. I can't handle more stories like this. ICE detained a 4-year-old U.S. citizen and her Honduran family in hotels for weeks. This story is insane. I'm going to link it here in chat for you guys. But basically, ICE kidnapped this Honduran family and monitored them 24/7 and kept them under confinement in a hotel. And they weren't able to talk to anyone outside of the hotel. They're not. They were effectively prisoners in this hotel. It's crazy. A Honduran mother, her 7-year-old son, and her 4-year-old daughter, who is a U.S. citizen, were held by ICE agents in a series of hotel rooms for nearly 3 weeks while the Trump administration sought to deport them. And Ingrid, the 37-year-old mother, told the city in Spanish on a Zoom call on Monday that her children kept asking when they could return home. "Mommy, when are we going to leave? I want to go to my house," she recalled them imploring. The city is withholding her full name and the names of her children while the family's case continues. "I had no response. I just kept saying, any moment now they're going to take us out of here. We have no idea what's going to happen," she said. But even now that they're home, Ingrid and her children are not out of the woods. Judge LaShanne d'Arcy Hall, the federal judge weighing their case, found she had no jurisdiction to block the family's deportation. The temporary restraining order that bars the family's deportation expires Thursday. They keep trying to put these families in untenable positions so that they self-deport. We've heard a lot about the torture in the various holding facilities, these concentration camps that ICE
Chad
is
was
running.
talking earlier. Things are exhausting, but know that we all think you are making a difference. We'll make it through this nightmare.
I really, really hope so. There are some nights where I feel like I'm just yelling into the void, but I see you guys responding, and I see you guys stepping up in all kinds of different ways in this community, and that's what really keeps me going. Knowing you guys are not just hearing, not just learning, but also taking action. It's really, really important to not just know the right thing to do, but to actually do the right thing. And so many of you are stepping up and doing the right thing. And when enough of us do that, we're going to be okay. But so much of the torture in these concentration camp detention systems is geared towards coercing these people into self-deporting. It's a way for them to get around the legal process. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop with Minnesota. And I've been saying this over and over and over again.
Did you see the stuff about ICE crushing people's testicles? Or the forced hysterectomies in 2017? Yep. I think we need to be louder about ICE sterilization and essays.
I think we need to be louder about the fact that this is bluntly like an ethnic cleansing operation. Like, when we talk about this being like genocidal in nature, like, we are seeing the early stages of ethnic cleansing. Like, they are sexually assaulting, in some cases, children in order to get them to self-deport. The ACLU report that mentioned crushing people's testicles, some of the people they interviewed for that were like 15, 16, 17 years old. It's disgusting, And they're not stopping at Minnesota. They're not stopping at Maine. They're apparently going to send ICE agents to Ohio next to target Haitian immigrants. This is very specifically related to the fact that Donald Trump has revoked temporary protected status for Haitian refugees, and they want to basically pull the rug out from under these gigantic refugee communities and then say, aha, now you're in the US illegally. We got you. And then send ICE agents in to just cause panic and terror. It's disgusting. And I want to add, extraordinarily illegal. Like, if you think that doesn't sound like it's possibly legal, you're correct. It isn't legal. But what they're banking on is that it's going to take the courts a long period of time in order to step in and say, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. They're banking on trying to blitz different immigrant communities in this country before the law can catch up to them. That's kind of how they've been operating so far. It doesn't matter to them if after a couple weeks a judge rules, no, that was an illegal revocation of temporary protected status. You can't do that. It doesn't matter to them if they've already tortured 1,000, 2,000 Haitian refugees into self-deportation, That's the purpose, or tangled them up inside the immigration system so that they're just detained indefinitely in a weird legal limbo. And I want to point out that ICE is trying to use the massive $100 billion, the $75 billion that Bernie Sanders wants to claw back, actually. They're trying to use that money to expand their concentration camp facilities, right? And what they're going around and doing is they're buying private warehouses across the United States so that they can renovate the inside and use them as concentration camp facilities. That's like their big plan. And luckily, at least one person, British Columbian billionaire, Jim Pattison, isn't going to sell this U.S. warehouse to ICE. So that's one win. But there are definitely other folks who own these facilities that are considering selling to ICE. And I want you all, as another piece of homework, if you are kind of person who's good with looking up information and contacting businesses, in a civil but firm way, I would encourage folks to compile a list of people who are considering selling these warehouses to ICE. There should be a knowledge of who is considering knowingly giving ICE the facilities to imprison hundreds, if not thousands of people. Because what they're looking to do here is to buy these up piecemeal and then just have total control over whatever happens inside these facilities. Like, there needs to be an effort to put public pressure and recognition on the people who are considering selling to ICE or providing services to ICE. Like, it should be like a major black mark against your record and your reputation if you are working with the modern day Gestapo. And it is worth noting, by the way, that DHS is aware that this makes them look bad. They quote tweeted, "Inside paper, ICE is buying massive warehouses across the U.S. to expand nationwide detention network. DHS has already purchased facilities in at least 8 states, including a $102 million site in Maryland and a $70 million warehouse in Arizona," according to the Washington Post. And Homeland Security writes, "These will not be warehouses. They will be well-structured detention facilities meeting our regular detention standards." I want to remind you all that DHS literally was running a concentration camp in the Florida Everglades where they were deliberately sending inmates naked into the clouds of mosquitoes so that they could be tortured by the mosquitoes. The idea that DHS has any kind of concept of regular detention standards is laughable. And if they actually do have regular detention standards, they are absolutely dog shit. You wouldn't wish them on your worst enemy. But it continues, "DHS law enforcement is conducting law enforcement activities across the country to keep Americans safe. It should not come as news that ICE will be making arrests in states across the U.S. and is actively working to expand detention space. Thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill, ICE has new funding to expand detention space to keep these criminals off American streets before they are removed for good from our communities." One of the good things that Bernie Sanders' bill would do would be that it would massively limit the number of facilities that ICE can purchase and build and renovate and run, right? We need to make sure we are doing everything in our power to make sure they are not able to build this detention network successfully. Yes, Foxy Cheshire, I've played videos on the channel of the screams at the Texas Dilley facility, the drone footage of them pleading for freedom. It's extraordinarily disturbing. I want to remind everyone that despite all of these billions of dollars that ICE has at their disposal, that they have stopped paying for third-party medical treatment at all of their holding facilities, and they haven't paid for any of that since October of last year, and they aren't going to begin paying for any of it until the end of April. So not until the beginning of May. It's torture, is what it is. They want people to die. They do want people to die. Yes. Now, I will say it is heartening to see that folks are stepping up every day in ways big and small. Just wanted to share with you this. Dear Liam, I'm so sorry about what's happening, buddy. I know you must be super scared and confused right now. Saw that you're not feeling great. I thought maybe if I drew you a picture, it might cheer you up, even just a little. Spidey is one of my favorites, too. I wish I could do more. I know if you see this someday, you'll know that there were so many people thinking and worrying about you, even though you don't know us. Sometimes when bad things happen, kids wonder if it was their fault, but none of this was your fault, kiddo. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing at all. Hope you feel better and that you and your dad get back to home with your mommy soon. For Liam Conejo, from your nerdy Theo Freddy. That was drawn by Wilfredo Torres, who is one of the comic book artists who has drawn Spider-Man in the past. Gets me too, guys. It gets me too. But people are fighting back in ways big and small, and that's, like, we all can only do what we can do, right? Like, I lack a lot of different skills, but I can talk in front of a camera. I've talked in front of a camera long enough that I've cultivated an audience where several hundred of you gift me with your time and your attention, and I'm going to try and use that in order to facilitate positive change in the world, But each one of you is good at something too. Each one of you has a skill or a position or some way you can leverage who you are, what you're good at, where you work, who you know, for good. Every single one of you. I believe what we are seeing right now is an entire country full of people standing up to do what they can, where they can, how they can. And I gotta say, shout out to Congresswoman Delia C. Ramirez, who is consistently, as of right now, top of the list when it comes to demanding what is required right now. The people demand not one more dollar for ICE. We demand not one more agent hired to terrorize our communities. We say abolish ICE and dismantle DHS. The people demand we abolish ICE. I just wanted to shout her out for doing the good work. And I want to remind you all that you are not alone. And I know it can feel really isolating when we're all stuck in our houses or our apartments, when we're afraid to go outside, when we're afraid that some chuckle nut in a mask is going to disappear us or someone we love. I know it can feel really, really isolating. But understand, there are millions of people in this country who are going out every day into the world, and they might not make a big deal out of it every single day, but every so often they're hitting the streets in the middle of a snowstorm to say, we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. It's really important to keep hold of these ideas, to keep hold of these moments, to keep a hold of the understanding that there are millions of people who are burning with the exact same righteous anger that is in your hearts right now. What we need to do is organize. What we need to do is show up in our local communities. What we need to do is get our shit together. So folks, join your local Dems. Join your local DSA. Get more involved in your local day-to-day political situation and call your elected members of Congress every damn day until they get this DHS funding bill passed in order to make sure Kristi Noem is gone, Stephen Miller is gone, get as close to abolish ICE as we can, get as close to abolish DHS as we can, claw back $75 billion from ICE to give it to Medicaid. Let's make it happen. Commit tonight to do that.
So MN is getting a lot more coverage than Chicago. Gee, can't imagine why. That said, is there anything I can do specific to helping Chicago?
You could support Kat Abu Ghazaleh. Kat's office is helping people on the streets of Chicago.
People are doing what they can. Streets of
Great
Minneapolis.
candidate.
Bruce Springsteen video added footage and lyrics.
Also, One-Eyed Atheist, thank you for the $5 super chat. Sorry You're Blue, thank you for the $5 dono. And yeah, Streets of Minneapolis is a great song. The boss really delivered on that one. So folks, join our Discord, reach out to Gamergy for help joining your local DSA, reach out to Dragonfly for help joining your local Dems. Folks, time to get organized. It's time to get organized. It's time to get organized. And if you got anything out of this segment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about all this. Comments longer than 8 words, apparently, really helping the algorithm. And also, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Tested on cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is non-tucking lingerie. And I would highly recommend you check it out. New styles, colors, and sizes coming in the near future. And also, buy some of it to make a fascist mad. That's just one additional sales pitch I have for you. Check it out. Link down in the doobly-doo. And let's keep on going, folks.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.